This episode, Dude and JD welcome Reece Sims, a judge from the International Wine and Spirits Competition, to talk about her journey into whiskey and some of the ins and outs of the spirits competitions. So sit back, grab a pour, kick up your feet, and enjoy on this episode of The Bourbon Hunters.
Gather round the mic, it's time to unwind. Drinking our bottles, all that we find. With tastings and tales, we're sharing our pours. Tune in each week, there will always be more. Tune in each week, there's lots to hear. Laughter and stories, we're all here to share. We're giving our ratings, they're always fair. Sit back, grab a pour, kick up your feet and enjoy.
And while you're listening, head over to our website at bourbonhunters.com where you can purchase Bourbon Hunters glassware and products and sign up for our Patreon, which puts you on our list for single barrel announcements from our private barrel club.
Tune in each week. Sit back. Tune in each week. Grab a pour. Tune in each week. Kick up your feet and enjoy. Kick up your feet and enjoy.
Welcome to another episode of The Bourbon Hunters. I'm Dude Poole, and I'm joined by
JD Richards.
And today we have a guest who has been judging international spirits competitions. Is that correct?
Yes, for a little bit.
Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Reece Sims. Do you want me to?
Yeah, just a quick little bio. Yeah. It's perfect.
For sure. So first off, I'm Canadian, which is kind of cool. I feel like there's less of us Canadians in the international spirits competition scene. So excited for that. But yeah, I am based in now Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And I am an independent consultant. So I own a company called SIP Spirits, SIP being sort of an acronym for Sensory Insights and Perceptions. So I really focus a lot on working with brands to understand what people like, why people like them, and how to better connect them and their kind of marketing strategies to appeal to the audience that they're looking to engage with. So that's a very short bio.
I like the acronym. That was clever. I didn't think anything about that when I saw it. So that's cool. So what got you into consulting, and what got you into I guess what was your path for consulting and then getting into where you are now with judging?
Yeah, for sure. So do you want the short or the longer?
No, take as much time as you want.
Okay, so I'll give you like a medium version, I suppose. So I actually went to school, I did business school back in the day, and in my fourth year of university, we kind of had very broad specializations for the specific program that I went to at this university called the University of Victoria, which is in the capital city of British Columbia in Canada. And their business school is cohort-based, really small. You essentially can either do entrepreneurship, management, hospitality, service, or international business. And so I did international business, weirdly, but in my fourth year, took a few advertising and marketing courses and really fell in love with marketing. So after doing my degree, I actually worked in marketing for 5 or 6 years, sitting in an office. I moved to Vancouver because it's the big city in British Columbia, if you're familiar, and in my early 20s, and was working in architecture in marketing communications for a number of years, but just didn't really like sitting in an office. I feel like that's such a quintessential millennial thing, saying that you don't like sitting in an office Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, or in my case, I was working 7 to 7 every day, and quit my job and quickly realized that trying to become a consultant at that point in my early 20s was really challenging, and I didn't know what I was doing at all. And so I was like, oh, shoot, I need to make money because it's really expensive to live in the city, and picked up a bartending job at a local Irish pub. And so I was working there on weekends, and just very coincidentally, around the same time, I met somebody who was starting up a women's whiskey club, and there was an enormous number of whiskeys on their shelves because it was an Irish whiskey pub. And with sort of a marketing background, I was like, maybe I should start blogging about this, or just talking about my journey of learning about whiskey, because there's not a lot of young women that necessarily are known as specialists or experts kind of in that field. And so I was like doing this whiskey club, bartending there. And within my first 6 months of bartending, I met this guy who would always come in on weekends and buy like 50 shots of Jack Daniels and just give them out to people. And finally I was like, who are you? Like, how do you afford to just buy shots and give them out to people? And he's like, oh, I'm the Jack Daniels brand ambassador. And for my job, I essentially just get to like do advocacy, aka sampling of our product, and educate people on what Jack Daniels is, why it's delicious, and what makes it unique and different from other whiskeys in the market. And I was like, this sounds like the dream job. Like, my background's in marketing. How do I get paid to talk about alcohol? Like, this sounds amazing. And so at the time he was like, well, I think just like every other industry, it's sort of about networking and getting to know other people in the industry, doing some education and specialization, get as much bartending experience as you can. So if you have the opportunity to work in other types of bars, that would be great. And just start applying for those kind of jobs. So I worked at a whole bunch of different bars, like did fine dining, did nightclubs, did high end, like one of Canada's top 10 cocktail bars for a number of years, took my wine and spirits education trust certifications up to like level 3, started traveling to like drink whiskey and go to distilleries and learn about whiskey and take courses. So I went to like Scotland, Ireland. I think similar to you, dude, I did my like executive bourbon stewardship at Moonshine University,
Yep.
like spent all my free time. And there's more flexibility when you're a bartender because you just take off like whatever time you want. So I did all that, and then started applying or started blogging under this website called Whiskey Muse, and started applying for jobs after like 3 or 4 years of bartending and traveling about and such. And it would always kind of come down to like me and one other person. And so during that time, I'd sort of built a bit of a following online, had been like blogging for a number of years, had gotten the work experience. But because I hadn't been a brand ambassador previously, it would always be somebody that like had brand ambassador work or was like already working like directly at that distillery in Scotland or something that would get the job and move to Canada for it, as there's not that many brand ambassadors here. And so I finally was like, screw it, I'm just gonna try and do something else, and got a job as a territory sales manager. So I was selling alcohol to bars and restaurants in downtown Vancouver. And ironically, one of my brands at the time, or one of our vendors was Brown Foreman. So I actually got to sell Jack Daniels into bars and restaurants. And my old Irish pub that I originally worked at was one of my accounts, which was really funny. And this sort of kept going until COVID. And because I was working with on-premise, I got laid off. And from there, I just did a couple like side hustle things and realized that I guess during my time of like being a sales manager and being a bartender, that there wasn't a lot of opportunities outside of whiskey clubs or brand sponsored kind of activations or educational opportunities. There wasn't a lot of opportunities for bartenders or consumers to get to try different types of whiskeys or different alcohols across multiple different brands at once. And also just the way that I kind of learn is very visually oriented. And so I started this program called Flavor Camp, where I started running in-person tastings and doing these online programs to kind of educate people on how to taste and understand alcohol and specifically whiskey in a way to kind of taste and relate everything together. And so we have like a Flavor Camp tasting system that I use to kind of help people simplify how to describe different whiskeys and compare them to each other, and just like run these different classes and stuff for consumers and bartenders to kind of teach them how to taste. So they're all kind of done blind or half blind, so you know what you're tasting but not the order. And then we'll use this tasting system to sort of practice our blind tasting skills in order to be able to become better tasters. So for me, I'm like, ultimately things like knowing the age and the price and the category of the spirit is sort of the how, and then like the country it's from is the where, but then the flavor itself is the what, and ultimately we're looking to drink the what. And so I just wanted to have like a simple way to kind of communicate that to people. And over the last, I guess this is going to my 4th year, I've been doing this consulting and running these tasting classes and different programs. And so I think from that, just because I am like one of the few independent consultants in Canada and maybe in, I don't know, North America, I've been kind of advocating to get to judge different spirit competitions because I get to work with like over 100 brands every year with doing different tastings and educational things. And so I get the opportunity to constantly be tasting or drinking more or less, and also just have a wide breadth of experience with different types of brands and whatnot, but I'm not necessarily tied to a brand. So being able to actually do these judging opportunities from bartenders, I guess, and like salesperson's perspective is a unique, I guess, take on it. So sorry, that was like a long answer.
There's a lot to unpack there, but that was a great run through. Yeah,
I feel like Garth from Wayne's World. Like, I am not worthy. I am not worthy.
No.
You just aged yourself.
No, 2 bourbon executive stewards, and I went to the executive bourbon bullshitters.
I mean,
you know,
you are surrounded by greatness. That's
I
true.
am.
So let's talk about that flavor camp. That sounds pretty neat.
Yeah. Would love to know more about that.
So, I mean, first off, we always like to drink while we are doing the podcast. So first off, cheers. You've got, what is that, lot 40?
Yes. I thought, I was like, I'm Canadian, so I'll do a Canadian whiskey. But I have the lot 40 dark oak, which is kind of one of my favorite Canadian whiskeys in terms of value for price point of the moment. So 100% rye whiskey, aged twice in brand new virgin oak casks. One's char 2, one's char 4. So it's like a lot of those really intense kind of clove or guaiacol type spices that you would get from a cask, and also rye just like come together to make this really rich, like coffee, a little bit of spice. It's a little bit higher ABV at 47, or wait, in American, what is that? 80, 94 proof?
Yeah, 94 proof. Yeah, we use both.
We put both on there.
But yeah, it's like a great Canadian rye whiskey that I don't think is readily accessible in the U.S.
I'll back you up on the Canadian rye. I'm down to my last bottle and a half of Alberta Premium cask strength.
Oh, that's amazing value for
$70. It's fantastic. Mine's like 66.6 alcohol by volume.
Oh, wow.
It's really tasty.
Nice. So I think we're both drinking. Are you drinking the Keepers release also?
I sure am.
Maker's Mark 2025 wood finishing series. So that's what we have right now. I think that is, what does that say? 54.65%. So 10. I can't see. I need readers. They're in the other room.
109.3.
109.3. Thank you.
And the notes on this are bold oak and toasted sweetness.
Nice. So a couple of things, I think, before we get into the flavor camp stuff, a couple of things I heard. So I heard marketing, I heard architecture, I heard business, and so it's funny. I have a dual degree, so I have a computer science degree and a general business degree, but with a minor in marketing.
I heard jealousy too. You wanted to get paid to drink whiskey.
Yes, I was going to get to that as well. But yeah, that's awesome. So architecture, I was in architecture school before I decided to go over to general business and computer science. But I just thought that was wonderful. Yeah.
It's like 10 to 12 years to just finally become a certified architect, at least in Canada.
Yeah, I mean, it's a 4-year degree in the U.S., but then you're not going to be an architect, on your job. You have to go out and get trained and stuff like that. So it's, I don't know that it's 12 years necessarily, but you would definitely be working like in small things and then slowly working your way into, larger things. But it would probably be a pretty long path for sure. I don't know because I didn't do it.
You have to do your master's, so it's like 6 years, and then there's like an enormous number of hours of on-the-job experience you have to do in order to get like the proper certification. So a lot of times there'll be architectural technologists for like the first 4 to 5 years of their career, and then will become an actual official architect.
Yeah, I don't think we use the exact same terminologies, but I think it's a very similar probably career path, I would assume. But that's pretty cool. I just heard all these things. We had already talked a minute ago about CrossFit and stuff like that, so it's kind of funny. So
Love it.
Yeah. So, what as far as flavor camp is concerned, and you're talking about talking people through drinking or tasting a whiskey. So we've all got some whiskey in our glass. Like, what are the highlights that you try to point out to people when they're nosing, tasting, whatever for bourbon or whiskey or whatever it is they're drinking?
Yeah, for sure. So essentially, it's kind of evolved over like I said, I'm kind of going into my 4th year of running the tastings now. So as I mentioned, like in WSET, for example, they have like a systematic approach to tasting that you kind of follow to learn how to taste. And for me, I thought that was really helpful, but it's very technical. And so what I sort of do is break it down. Whiskey's, I guess, the most complex, but essentially every single whiskey, regardless of what country, style, whatever age it comes from, can fall into a few of 13 different flavor camps, hence the name flavor camp. And so the idea is that every single whiskey will have like one primary flavor camp that's sort of like the dominant overarching flavor profile that you would remember about it, and then 1 to 3-ish secondary flavor camps. And so this just kind of helps us, like, of course, if you want to get nerdier, you can be more and more specific or have some sort of nostalgia around the way you describe a whiskey. But for this, I think those are all really great things.
He does that. Like every time he starts to give a taste profile, we have to buckle up because there's some long story about his grandmother cooking for Thanksgiving or something. Yeah. So
I demand it.
I hit the nostalgia note.
That you're trying right now.
Yeah.
But I really just try to simplify it for kind of newbies. It can be for like newbies all the way to advanced, and have like an independent tasting system. So I found like tasting wheels were really helpful from different brands when I was first learning about whiskey. Again, I'm a very visual person. And so I have like these, you can see on the back of my phone case, the different camps. And so it could be like, I guess going back to the Lot 40. I didn't plan this, but it was just from like an old tasting I did. But this one was like dominant is the roasted notes, and then secondary is spiced. So that would be its like flavor camp taste profile. Obviously, there's going to be like, you can get deeper and deeper into that and be like, oh, it has like cocoa, espresso, or dark roast coffee beans. We're getting, again, those like guaiacol chemical compounds like the clove and stuff like that. But for the general person, like, they don't necessarily need to nerd out into the scientific aspects of it. But for people that do want to be a bit more advanced, you can kind of reverse engineer it, and the different camps will kind of indicate different processes that were used to make the whiskey. So you can kind of like reverse engineer based on the flavor camp profiles too. So if you're like, oh, roasted and spiced, it's like, okay, the spice is probably going to come from either having like a heavy char on a barrel, maybe it's a rye whiskey, maybe it's a higher ABV. The roast is going to be, again, like higher char levels on the barrel, new oak, potentially using malt maybe, like, and so it just helps you to kind of train your palate to if you want to be simplistic, just like be able to describe what you like and why you like it and comparing it to other whiskeys. But if you want to get more advanced, like if this is the profile, like what were the inputs that went into making this whiskey, and being able to anticipate that based on blind tasting too, which kind of ties into like judging international spirit competitions and being able to like taste and evaluate effectively without putting personal bias into it, I suppose. So.
Yeah. So we do an episode a week that we call Mouth Experience Monday, and we probably should have called it Mouthfeel, but we always made fun of the people that were making fun of other people for using phrases like smooth and mouthfeel and stuff like that. So we decided to call it Mouth Experience instead, and it just kind of took off for us. But we do kind of a similar thing. We try to remove the bias. And so one of us blinds the others. There's normally 4 of us. So you're just getting the 2 of us, the best 2, but you're getting the 2 of us. So, we'll blind the other. So one of us will pick a whiskey, bring it in, blind the others, and then they give a really true, unbiased opinion and breakdown before we reveal to them what it is at the end. So it's kind of a thing that we do. It's only like a 10 or 15-minute episode each week, but
I'm kind of upset about the score I gave the one today.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the whole point of blinds, man. You don't, you can't plan ahead of time. You just got to tell what you think. But yeah, I mean,
do you have to guess what it is, or are you just scoring it for quality and then you find out the price point and age and all that?
yeah. So we it's organic, kind of like our long form episodes. But the main template for it is that we nose it, we taste it, we talk about the finish. We rate it, and then we'll ask some questions along the way, like, what do you think what do you think the proof is? How old do you think it is? Do you think it's a wheater or a rye-based bourbon or whatever?
If we feel confident, we'll kind of hedge a guess before we get to the hints of it.
Yeah. And then we'll give hints like, hey, it's from Bardstown, or it's from Louisville, or it's from Washington State or something like that, and then that'll kind of narrow it down for them. Then they start guessing after we give them a few hints. So
That's fun. I feel like that would be very vulnerable to be recording it though and actually putting it out.
It is. Yeah, that's what makes it. I think that's what makes it fun, because you kind of have to throw out. I mean, there have been some where we've been like right out of the gates, hovering right around what it is, and being very close, like getting the distillate right, but maybe the label wrong or something like that. But
a couple of weeks ago, I had Old Forester nailed right in the head.
Oh, you did, yeah.
And then you had the Heaven Hill nailed.
I did
too.
Yeah. That was, but it doesn't happen very often. Normally, we're either way off or but. It's just funny because it does, like you said, it just takes out those biases, of what you might think of something. As soon as you see a label, I know most people, if they've been chasing something for a year and they get it tasted, it's going to add, something to their perception of that whiskey. So, it's just kind of one of the things that we came up with as an idea to just kind of remove that, so that people are getting a real honest, review from us.
And it started out as doing like shelfers, things you can walk into the liquor store and readily find.
And we still do those.
And we still do those. Now we incorporate some LEs in there as well.
Yeah.
Like I gave Angel's Envy cask strength a 3.3 out of 5, which is kind of low for something LTO like that.
But I mean, especially, and then once you find out the price point, then it, sometimes that'll tell us, we wouldn't pay that for this if we knew ahead of time or something like that. But yeah, so
that's super cool.
Yeah,
I do essentially I do the same thing in my flavor camp classes with people, and so I'll give them like the tasting system, and then also we do an evaluation, and so I have like 5 different things that you evaluate a spirit on blind, and then. Or I guess 4, and then 1 like unblind is like the value for price point, because I think that's so important and not incorporated into a lot of considerations with scoring, is like, now that you know the price after you've initially evaluated a blind, like, do you feel like that's good value for yum is what we like to say.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I mean, it's almost like a sliding scale for the actual rating too, because, you give something a 3.5 and it's $20. That's great. If you give something 3.5 and it's $220,
Yeah, exactly.
So,
for sure.
But yeah, I think that's an important thing that a lot of times gets often overlooked. So, but we always, if it comes up, we'll talk about the price point for sure.
So is rye your jam? Is that what you really like?
Honestly, I feel like I'm trying not to be strategic, but I like everything. It just depends on like the day and my mood and what. I don't know. I do drink a lot of bourbon. It's just with not to get too political, but just with like the tariff stuff.
Right now, yeah.
A lot of bottles disappearing off the shelf.
Trying to support more Canadian stuff.
Yeah.
So can you still get Whistle Pig, because that's technically Canadian rye?
Well, some of it is. I think they're actually like producing some of their
Are they now?
Some, yeah.
What about Caribou Crossing? Caribou?
They don't even have that, I swear, in Canada. Like,
really?
I feel like that's a Sazerac.
We
gimmick.
call it the Canadian Blantons.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny. There's quite a few brands that are like Canadian whiskey available in the U.S. and I'm like, I've never seen this on a shelf.
I think that's a Sazerac gimmick. I think they just do that to get people to buy their version of a Canadian whiskey because of their, they're such a marketing force. So I think people just buy anything they can from them. So Scotch, what are your feelings on Scotch? Do you have a region that you prefer? Do you like any Scotch? Do you like all Scotch? What do you think?
Yeah, I genuinely like all spirits. I would say whiskey is my first and will always be my first love, just like all categories across everything. With my sort of online programming that I do, so in person, I do different themes. Right now, I'm actually running a bunch, my first events in the city, because I just moved here 6 months ago, I guess. So I'm doing international whiskeys, so they're very top of mind right now. But with Scotch, again, I feel like I'm giving a non-answer. I would say if I had to choose, like, gun to my head, I would choose Isla for sure, hands down.
Oh, wow.
Like the regions, I don't know.
You like burnt tires?
No, that's my least favorite. Just because, and here,
curry, salty ropes in my mouth, and tires, and
I know
all of that good salinity for sure.
My problem with Isla is that I grew up, I'm 50, so I grew up with, and you're probably way too young to even know about this, but they had these Band-Aid tins back in the day. So instead of like a cardboard, thing that you got your Band-Aids out of, it would be like a little, tin, almost like a Sucrets or not Sucrets.
I had gum out of one of those.
What are the Altoids? Like the Altoids that they get, it would be something like that. And every time you'd open that up, you'd get like this whiff of iodine. And I cannot shake that flavor connection. So that's what my mind goes to whenever I taste a very heavily peated Scotch. My mind immediately goes to a Band-Aid tin, and for whatever reason, I have not gotten over that hump. I just can't get past it. So
that's totally fair.
Yeah. So the less peaty of the regions, I can generally I enjoy the blends, like any of the Scotch blends. I'm actually pretty good with any of the Johnny Walkers. Really, I don't mind any of those. But like I guess a Highland Scotch, I can get behind a little bit more than say like an Isla. I don't know. I just that's my kryptonite is that peaty, that iodine kind of smell to me. It just kind of messes with me.
Okay. I feel like, so with peat, obviously Isla, they source a lot of the peat from Isla, and it has a different chemical compounds in the peat than other regions. So I don't know if you've tried like a Highland peat-based whiskey before, or even something like Westland in the U.S., how they source like peat from Washington State. Yeah. So it's not going to have that like iodine medicinally kind of note.
Right.
It kind of depends on like what's degraded into the earth to make the peat. So if you kind of find something that's based on more woodlands versus like seaside and mossy, like you're going to get more like campfire smoke kind of vibes to it versus that.
Yeah, those are the ones I typically gravitate toward. Like I just that's the reason. If it reminds me of that Band-Aid tin, I immediately get turned off.
I like Glenfiddich.
Okay.
How do you pronounce that?
I get to represent them when I was with. So I definitely have like a soft spot for them. I think their 14 years, like, well, I don't know what the price point is in the US, but the bourbon barrel finish is like a great recommender for people, or shelfer that you can recommend that's like a decent price point for people. So
it might be $79.99 or like $99.99 right in that realm.
With the bourbon barrel finish?
I think so.
So here's the thing, is like in Canada, a lot of bourbon, it's like premium priced here, but then in the US it's like so cheap. So I find trying to convert people that are in the US to pay like 3 times more for a bottle of like, I don't know, 14-year Glenfiddich or something is like a tough convince and convert versus like a great $30 bottle of bourbon, right?
So, yeah.
So it's $70 here. 14-year bourbon barrel reserve, $70 in Ohio anyway.
Macallan is what gets outrageous here.
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, but it seems like everything's expensive here, or at least in British Columbia where I used to live, but especially, I guess, it's probably cheap compared to the US for Scotch because our dollar is so poor compared to the US dollar.
So earlier you were talking about coffee notes and chocolate notes and some of those more robust notes. There is a American single malt. It's by Westward Whiskey. It's called the Milestone, and it's just full of just chocolate covered espresso bean flavor.
And I think they just went into what's the protected bankruptcy?
Oh, Chapter 11.
Receivership or something.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what they did in the last few weeks. They just announced it.
Yeah, the big news coming out of Columbus
is
Middle West
Spirits
just acquired Old Elk, which is crazy.
Oh, wow.
I had no idea. Like,
I didn't know they were gunning for it.
Well, I didn't know Old Elk was even looking to be acquired, first off, but that was pretty interesting.
Greg Metz is close.
He is in Cincinnati, I guess. Yeah, so maybe that's part of it. I don't know. But it was weird. When I woke up to that news this morning, I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
So that's...
Yeah, I'm sad to hear that there's so many distilleries having challenges right now. Like even the bigger guys like Brown-Forman and Diageo are closing or laying off the staff or slowing down production or stopping production in some of their smaller distilleries.
I think we're seeing the bigger distilleries. I think we're just seeing a normal ebb and flow that you get from success to, plateaus and things like that when they just plan for success, and it levels off and doesn't necessarily lead to what they thought. But these smaller craft distillers, I think they're getting hit hard. I think that's, some of them, I think, were gunning for bourbon being, the future of everything. And I think a lot of them just maybe didn't...
Well, I think Buffalo Trace is part to blame for that.
Well,
in their whole marketing and the secondary market coming based off of like Buffalo Trace products.
Yeah, I think just a lot of places, investors included, just really didn't look realistically at the market and just were gunning for everyone being successful for the next, infinity years.
Well, in 2020, there was a huge boom because of COVID. Nobody could go outside. Well, nobody could do anything really.
Right.
And then everybody started like, oh, we can collect bourbon and it's worth, money.
Yeah.
And everybody went out looking for it. And I think the inflated numbers gave the distilleries a false sense of sales.
That's kind of what I mean. But yeah, I think COVID... Because we're still way better off than we were, before COVID. But I think COVID really, really, made it look artificially higher than it probably should have. So,
yeah, I think it's challenging too because it probably had a number of people be like, "Well, I can start up my own distillery and like tap or cash in on that." And then suddenly, like the sales, well, there's more competition for one. For two, like opening up a new distillery right now, I can only imagine the cost of actually just setting it up in terms of like infrastructure would be so expensive. Like I can't imagine how craft distilleries actually make money these days, especially
I don't think they did. Yeah.
Like you have to wait a minimum of like a few years to even sell the product, right? After you've like developed it.
Yeah.
Maybe you're doing like vodka or liqueurs or something in the meantime, but I just can't even imagine like.
Yeah, like vodka or gin or something, or you're sourcing like from somewhere else, like what was it? New Riff was OKI.
Oh, OKI.
Before their stuff became. And I think, but partially what you're talking about, and this is what I thought you were going for, with places like, those craft distillers that were popping up in 2020 and different places like that. I think those were filling a void of there not being enough product available from places like Buffalo Trace and Heaven Hill and stuff like that. And they all were able to start ramping up their production. And now the shelves are actually like Buffalo Trace is on the shelves again. Like it's just sitting on the shelves again. And so I think because those flagships of those, major brands are back out there again, I think if it's hurting anyone, it's those craft distilleries because they can't match those prices generally.
Well, it makes people like Blue Run look like geniuses because they sold the cores, before this happened. Yeah.
I mean, a lot of them did along the way, and I think it all just depended on what your goal was as a business. If your goal was to sell, that's fine.
Penelope to Ross and Squibb.
Well, Ross and Squibb, the lawyers. Yeah. Sorry.
The law firm of Ross and Squibb.
We don't get a lot of Penelope up here, so I've only had the opportunity to try it like once or twice. Actually, while I was in the U.S. But
if you get to Bardstown, it's sitting in the Lux Row gift shop now that now that Lux Row and them are all part of Ross and Squibb or MGP or whatever you want to call them.
And some of their limited run stuff, like the Valencia, it has this orangey profile to it. It's delicious. It's a Vino de Noir. Is that what it is? Cask finish.
I just like
something like that.
You try to speak another language.
Hooked on Phonics didn't work for this guy.
No, they've been playing with a number of like unique cask types, right? Like they did a rosé.
Yeah, rosé finish. They have the Havana, which is a maple.
Yeah, super interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So we have totally jumped the tracks a
Yeah.
little bit. Let's get back to you.
No, that's okay.
I told you we get organic and we just kind of segue here and there. But so you did the flavor camp stuff. That I like that. That's kind of neat. I'm gonna have to look that up a little bit more.
We have Flavortown here.
Flavortown, yeah.
Guy Fieri, the food guy.
Oh, who doesn't like him? So let's talk about how did you end up then getting, you said that kind of got you into a little bit, the advocacy and all that stuff got you into competitions and judging and things like that. Let's talk about judging and how that works as far as like, I guess how exactly, I know you kind of briefly touched on how you got into it, but how did you get into it? And then what are you enjoying so much, or what are you enjoying about it so far, I should say?
For sure. So I feel like this is a little bit like woo-woo out there, but not that I have an actual like printed out vision board or something, but I'm a big like goal setter kind of person. And so I've always wanted to judge spirit competitions. I thought it would be a really interesting like thing to do, and had competed formerly in like a number of bartending competitions doing cocktail stuff, and then eventually kind of like transition into organizing and judging cocktail competitions. And so just in the last I guess like 2 years, I've just started kind of dipping my foot into judging international spirit competitions. And the way it sort of happened was just, I feel like knowing the right people and just like asking or putting yourself out there and saying, oh, if there's ever an opportunity, like I would be interested, this is my credentials, this is what makes my perspective different. And worst case, they can test you out, but they have tons of other judges obviously on the panels. And then I feel like if they re-invite you back, you're like, okay, I did like a decent job. And then I think you just, again, like anything, like if you've judged one international spirit competition, you kind of have that on your resume, so to speak, to say that you have the experience in doing so. And so it's a little bit easier to be referred into other spirits competitions, so to speak.
Like those ambassadors that kept getting ahead of you in those other jobs, right? Once you get that experience, right?
Have you tried to get into the Fred Minnick Ascot Awards?
I don't even know what they are, but I know.
That's totally. So he does this Ascot Awards things where he has a Jason who's
Jason
on the
Mash and Drum.
He is on our show a lot. He does it with him, but it's his own award ceremony type of thing, I guess, where he pits these different whiskeys blind together and sends them out to the other guest judges that he invites. But it's just his own thing that he started up. But quick question, I want to get to where you're currently
yes,
doing.
Yes.
Yeah, but how did you, and at what point did you maybe start to realize that you had the ability to, judge and pick out things in these whiskeys, in these different spirits or wine or whatever categories that you judge for, if not all of them? When did you start realizing that you had a knack for that, being able to kind of pick those flavors out and judge those things?
That's a good question. I mean, if I'm being honest, I have an immense amount of imposter syndrome, and so I don't even feel like necessarily I can do it, but maybe I can't. I don't know. But I would say if I had to pinpoint it, it's pretty recent. So are you guys familiar with like the American Distilling Institute?
I've heard of it. I'm not familiar with them, but yeah, I've heard the phrase. Yes.
Yeah, no worries if you haven't. So they're like a large, I guess, advocacy group for craft distillers in the U.S. And they run a conference every year called like the American Distilling Institute. I think like Craft Spirits Conference or something like that. And so I went to it for the first time, I guess 2 years ago. And one of the kind of add-on half-day courses that you can take is this woman named Nancy Fraley. She's like
the nose.
Do you guys know who she is?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
She's like in life. It's crazy.
Greatest blender out there.
oh my gosh, she's unbelievable. So she offers a number of courses, like add-on courses, in addition to the conference. And so one of them was called like Nosing for Faults that she runs every year. And so I did that course, and it's, I think, 3 or 4 hours long, and you get to nose like 40 or 50 different samples, and she will kind of explain what the different fault is from mostly whiskey things, but there's some other spirits as well. And I had done, like, during COVID, when I didn't have a job and was laid off, I was just like reading, like nerding out on like scientific articles about whiskey and stuff, and thought I would try and like learn more things. And so I'd like read about all these different things, but I'd never like tasted a faulty whiskey with like a specific fault in it, right? And so anyways, when I was taking this course, she would like make us know stuff and then like ask us to guess what the fault was. And I was just like front row center, I swear, like putting up my hand being like, ooh, I'll guess, like I think I know, and like got quite a few of them right. And before she told us what they were, and I was like, oh my God, maybe I do know things. Like, this is
awesome.
crazy. So I feel like that was like the first time where I was like, wow, I know this stuff because I've spent years like teaching about it, tasting stuff, researching it, like actively taking courses, and it's like finally somehow coming together in my brain. But a lot of the stuff I'm doing is because when I first started, I was so intimidated because I would be going to these tastings with like me and 99% guys, and then they would have all these like elaborate tasting notes and stuff, and I'm like, what is he talking about? Like, I smell whiskey and I like it. I don't know. Right. Like, so I've like, being a kind of self-conscious person, I just kind of made it my mission to get better at it. And I guess it reached the point where I now feel more comfortable voicing my opinion on things, or talking about tasting notes and whatnot with confidence, but understanding kind of like where those notes would come from on a chemical level and the different during the production processes has also really helped me to kind of backtrack it into, I guess,
that's awesome.
Being able to articulate things.
I think it's great. Like, honestly, a couple of things for me. I'm going to get long-winded here like I always do, but a couple of things that I just that hit me as you were talking, and one of them is just that you mentioned 99% men in a room, you know, that you're doing tastings and stuff. And I think one of the things that I've really enjoyed seeing more recently is the inclusion of women for a couple of reasons. For one, because, I mean, it's always been just kind of a guys club, right? You know, whiskey and all that stuff. You think cigars, whiskeys, you know, a room, maybe poker, whatever. But then, you know, you think about it from a scientific perspective, and most people think that women have a better ability to taste and nose than men, just, you know, naturally.
Innately, yeah.
Yeah, and I think, I know my wife, holy cow, I mean, she just drinks vodka, but she'll take my glass and she'll nose it, and she'll be like, oh, that smells like blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, are you kidding me right now? Like, she doesn't even try, and she's just like pulling stuff out. And, you know, you hear about, you know, stories like that, like the legend of, you know, Jackie Zykan being able to nose, or
vodkas.
Doing the vodka blind and being able to tell which brand was which just from vodka, which is just insane to me. But
do you know that story?
No,
but
I can
it's insane.
Yeah, I mean, she had I don't know if it was a similar path, but she was a bartender before she got into the master tasting and stuff like that. And I guess there's a legend of her where she was able to do like a blind of, I don't know,
6 or 7,
or somewhere in there.
I can tell you each one of these vodkas,
and she was able to blind taste them and tell you what they were.
And you're not supposed to be able to taste vodka.
Well, I mean, in America, in Russia, that's a different story.
I was going to say, I'm actually doing a unit on that in July and talking about, like, I have a flavor camp profile thing for vodkas, actually.
Really?
Yeah. A lot of it is dependent on the base grain or ingredient that's used, for sure.
Okay.
Well, and I think Russian vodka, not the stuff that we drink, but their traditional vodka, I believe, does actually have flavor.
Okay.
And texture and stuff like that. Whereas here, I think they try to distill the flavor out of it on purpose.
Distilled 12 times.
27.
Yeah.
But so I think, to me, that's really cool. I like seeing more women get involved in the industry, you know, like the Nancy Fraley's, the Jackie Zykans, you, and different people. Just in general, it's just kind of nice to see that diversity of people, but also just, for women to even just to be showing the interest lately. You're seeing a lot more bourbon and whiskey clubs with women, or started by women and only women, and I think isn't there another Columbus podcast? It's like Whiskey Women or something like that too.
Something like that.
But I mean, since I've been into whiskey and bourbon, it's really been on the rise, which I think is just kind of nice. It's only good for the brand or the industry, I should say, when more people are interested. But it also just brings more, variety and interest to the different angles of people that might like different things and different flavors. So I don't know. I think that's like I said, long-winded response to something I caught in what you were saying.
But don't forget Elizabeth McCall.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's tons of them. That's what I'm saying. I think it's a great thing. I mean, you're seeing just a big, rise of women not just only being interested in whiskey, but in the actual industry now.
Marianne Eves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you can just keep naming women. That's my point. But anyway, go ahead. So getting to where you are now. Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to say two things about that. Like, one, I think just bottom line, it's like a good business decision to try and appeal to more demographics.
Sure.
And
Yeah, of course.
It was like a huge underutilized one formerly up until the last, even in the last 10 years, things have changed so drastically. But I'm like, why wouldn't you want the traditional household spenders to be spending money on your product, right?
Marketing
why wouldn't you want to appeal to women? Yeah, for sure. But I think the second thing, or I guess leading into IWSC specifically, I'm just really impressed with a lot of the judging panels these days and how diverse they are, because I feel like, again, even maybe 10 years ago, there probably wasn't the same amount of diversity in terms of ages, genders, ethnicities on a panel. And that gives a more holistic and just, I think, more authentic score for these whiskeys that are winning the awards, right?
Yeah.
Versus it being all the same archetype of person scoring it in a whatever way. So
Right. So you're now at IWSC, right?
Yes.
And you have yet to do an actual judging with them, is that correct? At this point?
Yeah, so I think when is this airing? We'll be doing our judging process in the end of May, first week of June.
It'll be right around that time.
Kentucky.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're going to be in Kentucky for that? Or is that something remote? Or cool.
Yeah, so it's an in-person experience. There are different ways to do judging. Sometimes they'll send out samples and you just kind of do it at home kind of thing. But I think the in-person experiences are the best way to do it, because you don't get the same discourse if you're just doing it independently, right? So
I would agree with that. I've never done one, but I would imagine that that's the case. So when you are doing these judging things, so it's international wine and spirits competition, right? So that, to me, covers a lot of things. Wine and spirits can obviously be a lot of different things. So when you are doing the judging, are you basically put into a certain category, or are you actually expected to judge all of those things, like tequila, whiskey and wine and, rum and different things like that?
Yeah, so I think it just depends on the judging event. But for this one specifically, so IWSC runs these judging panels in multiple continents. So this is IWSC North America, I believe, that's going to be happening. But they're currently doing judging in the UK right now for it as well. But for this one specifically, we're only doing whiskey and RTDs, I believe. However, other international spirit competitions I have judged, it can be, sometimes they'll recruit people that have a specialization. Sometimes they are looking for people that have more general experience. And so it's a mixed bag. So for me, my background is whiskey, and then secondary, every other spirit, I would say. But I haven't actually judged exclusively whiskey in a spirit competition that I've done yet, which is amazing. So I would say it's better to do more categories because you don't have as much palate fatigue that way, versus only doing one category. It can get daunting when you're trying like 60 to 70 products per day for multiple days. Obviously you're spitting during it, but
I could only imagine. I mean, we've done 2 or 3 barrel picks from different places, you know, in one day, and by the end of the day, you're just destroyed. So I could only imagine.
I mean, like I said, you're spitting, and at least in the competitions I've done, it's like they give you very hearty breakfasts and lunches to just chow down on.
Yeah.
So you have to get like base of food in your stomach while you're judging, and dinners as well. But yeah, with it, like essentially what happens is there will be 2 to 3 sessions a day. So you like do a kind of group breakfast, and then judging will start at like 9 a.m. and your first session will be like 9 to 12 p.m. And so you're trying, I want to say maybe like 30 different products in each session on average, depending on how fast or slow your table is. And so with it, like typically for judging, there will be, I don't know, like anywhere from like 12 to 40 different judges, depending on how many categories they're covering and how many submissions there are. And so your judging panel will be maybe 4 to 6 people. And so what you do is like in the first day, they'll kind of establish like what the criteria is for scoring and how to give out medals. And I can talk a little bit more about kind of like the general of how medals are given and whatnot, but they'll do that. And then they'll do some sort of like calibration test where everybody just tries something and kind of gives it a score or talks about it a little bit, just to make sure we're like all on board and not just completely wildly off the ends of like scoring stuff. And then like you'll have your laptop with you, and then you'll get kind of different groupings of like anywhere from like 3 to 8 different samples at once, and you'll go through all of them, write the notes, like tasting notes or evaluatory notes with it, give it a score, and then there will be like a head judge that kind of has access to like everybody and what they've submitted. And then once everybody's done with that like set of samples, you'll discuss them. And so for the most part, if you're like pretty aligned with the scoring, it doesn't require very much discussion. But if you're like way off with other people on your judging panel, you can kind of like advocate for why you gave it that score, what you liked about it, what improvements it needs, and so on and so forth, until you kind of come to a consensus on what kind of medal it should receive, or like a average score kind of thing.
So yeah, I guess that's pretty interesting. So when you talk about how many would you do in a day, did you say like around 60 maybe?
60 to 70 a day.
So and I guess for me, a big part of the flavor and my final like idea of what a whiskey would rate, or any spirit for that matter, would be with the finish included. Do you get, when you're spitting, like, are you able to tell the finish at all when you're spitting? I know some of it will obviously residual in your mouth, but like, so you can kind of get an idea of what that finish would be like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And like, just like you're just trying one spitting and then you're done and that's it. Like you can go back and forth as you're discussing, you can taste them. And most of the time you'll only know what like general category the product is in, or we'll just talk about whiskey specifically for IWSC. So I would imagine they're going to be like, okay, these are like bourbons or something, or maybe it's like cask strength bourbons, and that's like all the information you have. You don't know anything about like the ABVs, mash bills. Maybe sometimes they'll tell you like it's like 40% plus ABV, or it's cask strength only for this set of like products that you're trying, but you don't know, and they don't like reveal it right away or anything like that. Essentially on the very last day, sometimes depending on the judging, they'll like open up the back room, and then you can like see what all the submitted products were.
Oh, wow.
But it's not necessarily something you find out like right at the moment. And so even when they like reveal the awards, like the gold medalists and whatnot, it's like oftentimes that'll be the first time the judges actually find out who and what received those gold medals as well.
Oh, wow.
Which is
that would honestly, I think, take so much discipline for me to not to like have to spit out what, because I've never in my life spit out whiskey. Like, so like
Me neither, other than judging.
you know what I mean? Like, that's just so weird to me. Like, I think that would
Yeah.
take some serious discipline to not just accidentally just swallow it because you're like, oh, I'm drinking whiskey. That would, I guess, you probably are in a whole different mode once you start it. But that blows my mind. I can't even imagine. To me, that's just such a part of the experience. Well, here goes Clyde.
Well, I think this is the thing that I try to think about is that we're like ultimately, again, a lot of craft distillers are submitting their products, and it's like we're helping these distilleries to communicate their greatness to people. And I don't take that lightly. Again, the economy is like been a bit wild over the past like post-COVID times. And so any opportunity where we can help to advocate or give a good score or a medal to a product that maybe is lesser known or maybe it's really well known, like this is something that I don't want to screw up. And so it's like spitting is part of my like duty to be able to be on top of my game, to be able to do the best I can to evaluate this with the least amount of bias.
It makes sense.
But, I love drinking whiskey and I don't want to spit it out, but it's just like you have to do it because
if you're going to last the entire day, there's no way. Yeah.
Very quickly. Otherwise.
I can't even imagine.
When they're feeding you, I can offer you one tip: stay away from the hot honey pepperoni pizza.
I'm sure they're probably given pretty bland food. I would imagine that
it will kill your palate for the next 2.5 hours.
We do a whiskey trip every December for one of the guys that's not here. His birthday is right around Repeal Day. And so every year we go to the Bourbon Trail in December, and we call it the Bourbon Blitz because we just hit as many shops as we can and distilleries and stuff like that. But what was it, 2 years ago? Yeah, 2 years ago we stopped by, picked up some pizza, and we had some hot honey pizza.
No, we ate at Jim Beam's The Kitchen Table.
Oh, that's what it was. You're right. Yeah, we ate at the kitchen. Yeah, so we did the VIP experience at Jim Beam, and it included dinner afterwards, and we all had, I think almost all of us had the hot honey pizza. Yeah. And when we got back, we always do, after that first day, we do a bottle kill episode where we just destroy a bottle that we bought on the trail. And
this time it was 3.
Yeah, because there was like what, 9 of us.
Yeah, 9
of us.
Oh, okay.
So we the whole point of it is it's generally a 2-episode arc where the first episode we're speaking normally, and by the second episode we're pretty lit up.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of a funny episode that we do, but we couldn't taste anything.
No.
It just tasted like straight up like ethanol because we had that hot honey and it destroyed our palate. So good point from JD. Long-winded answer from me, but what do they feed you? Like what kind of food? Is it pretty bland?
No, I mean most of the time it's either been at restaurants or just like they've had kind of like buffet or family style, so you just pick and choose what you want to eat.
Yeah.
But I've never thought about that, even though obviously food and having that makes a big difference. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
it hasn't been impactful. I think like they have so much water on hand, and like sparkling water in particular I find really helpful because it like the bubbles help to like clean your palate. So I like drink a lot of sparkling water while I'm judging personally.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I never even thought about that.
Rinse the palate, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so
you think sparkling water helps cleanse it a little bit better than still water does?
1,000,000%.
Wow.
Like the bubbles again are going to help to like reset your palate.
Interesting. Okay.
Way more effectively than water.
You can make
but
bubbles.
Obviously, you want to like add sparkling water to sample. Well, not obviously, but
yeah.
still water is a better choice to dilute stuff for sure.
So I think that's what if you had to. How many? Well, I guess you said that sometimes they open up that back room and you get to go back and see some of the things. Now, do you ever get revealed to you, like after the fact? Do they say, "Hey, by the way, here's a list of all the things," or is it just like you said, where they open up the door and you can kind of go back if you're curious to see what it was that you tasted? Like, do you have to go out of your way to find out what it was, or do they just present it to you?
It's a combination of both because a lot of times there's like hundreds, if not like 1,000+ spirits in the back room, which is glorious. And it's like the leftovers of the bottle. And so there's like so much left. And if you want to like try stuff again, you can. So there's like two ways you can kind of do it. With the evaluation, they will always have on your, like, typically you're tasting out of ISO glasses because they are like 6 or 7 ounces, and you're getting about a ½ ounce sample, and that way there's lots of room to nose. It's like concentrating the vapors, and they put like a little sticker with the code or like the number of the sample on it. So if there's something that you're like really interested in, usually you can just kind of note down in your notebook and be like, oh, sample 99, and be like, oh, we gave this a double gold and it was super interesting because of X, like if you have time. And so when you open up the back room, you can kind of like hunt for the samples that you've noted, usually. And then typically they will also have like stickers or some sort of indicator to show like bronze, silver, gold, double gold kind of evaluations in the back room. So even if you weren't sampling something that did get double gold, you can like see what other tables or other panels had awarded highly to kind of taste it if you want to do that.
Oh, so that's interesting. So, and maybe I misunderstood what you just said. So
yeah, sorry.
No. I think I understood what you said. I'm going to follow up to make sure I did.
Yes.
So let's say there's 1,000 whiskeys. That may not be correct, but let's just say there's 1,000 whiskeys there at a competition. Is it? I think what I just heard from you is it possible that you might only do 200 of those 1,000, and you might not get to actually? So some of your cohorts might be doing the other, 800 divided up among them.
Yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
So at a competition, you might not get to taste some of the things that are there in your category.
Yeah, for sure. Like, especially with whiskey, I think because there's so many producers that are submitting products, I think like in the most recent spirits competition I did, there was 2 different panels doing whiskeys, and they didn't overlap in terms of what they were sampling in it. And so people could go afterwards and kind of see what the other categories that they didn't get to judge received, what awards and what products were in it, if that makes sense.
I have a 2-parter for you.
Yeah.
What is the vetting process to getting into this?
To become a judge, you mean?
No, to be like being able to submit a whiskey. Is there a vetting process where you have to qualify check so many boxes?
No, not at all. So with it, you literally just submit, I think, oftentimes it's like 1 or 2 bottle samples, and then there's like a fee for submitting, but anyone or everyone can do it. You don't have to be in the US. It can be anywhere in the world. Typically, like if it's for IWSC for this one, it was like any, I think, North American producer can submit. International producers could as well, but like this was just the IWSC North America specific judging that we're doing. So it's going to be heavy on, I think, like American and Canadian producers and potentially some Mexican whiskeys. I feel like there's very few that are internationally known or available, but there potentially could be in it. But
there was back in the mid 20s and 30s of the 1900s.
Yeah, Mary Dowling.
During Prohibition.
yeah, true that.
They went just over the border. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Well, the second part to that, has any samples been disqualified for, or have they been found out to have tampered with their samples to where they're disqualified?
Not that I personally know of, but one of the interesting things is that it doesn't have to be, like you were saying, I love how you said shelfers earlier, because I've never heard that. And I'm like, that's like genius to describe just like the readily available products that you can find anywhere.
Just so you know, he did not come up with that term.
No, I'm giving you credit.
Hey, no, I'm wearing this.
That is a very common term in the United States. He did not come up with that.
I'm wearing this genius moniker now.
No, you get some credit. But so interestingly, like you don't see that many shelfers these days, I would say, in most categories, with some exceptions. Like I find for Tennessee whiskey, again, because there's like not infinite numbers of distilleries producing Tennessee whiskey, you're seeing a lot of the same players like submitting a lot of times, like Uncle Nearest or Jack Daniels or that sort of thing. But like with it, typically there's like the judges, and then equally as important are like the stewards that are helping to actually pour and like run the really tight ship to have the samples ready and given out and like clearing everything. And so they typically come in early for competitions and get to sample everything to make sure that bottles aren't corked or whatnot, and that they are what they say they are. So typically we wouldn't try stuff, I don't think, that had been like tampered with, if you would say. But if it is like corked, or if there's some sort of like faultiness to it, that would typically be caught before the judges are sampling it, if that makes sense.
What about additives added or something?
Well, first off, what does corked mean? And then talk about additives.
Like cork. So sometimes like with the cork on a bottle, there can be like bacteria that grows on it, and it would like taint the actual whiskey itself because of the bacteria growth. So it could just be like, yeah.
So,
like something
not
like,
something they would have done to it okay, I was thinking you meant something that they might have tampered with to get it to taste different or whatever. Okay, sorry.
I don't think so, but I don't think that they're doing like, I don't think judging organizations are doing like spectrometer chemical analysis to make sure all the samples are legitimate or not. But one way that I think strategically distilleries can submit samples is that if they're doing single barrel picks, like you can submit a single barrel pick into judging typically, and if it's like a phenomenal bottle, maybe that you wouldn't like, people wouldn't be able to buy that specific product, but still having the cachet of having like a gold medal worthy product for that distillery is going to help that brand, if that makes sense.
Henry
right?
McKenna.
So, well, yeah, I mean that's I guess a decent example. That's a single barrel bottled and bond. But what about so let me ask you this. So you get any of the major brands, so like Elijah Craig or Buffalo Trace or whoever, they do Elijah Craig barrel picks with clubs and with different places. Buffalo Trace does the same thing with, their Buffalo Trace and stuff like that. Would Buffalo Trace be able to submit, if their normal flagship Buffalo Trace product is a batched product, would they be able to submit a single barrel under the guise of Buffalo Trace?
I don't think so.
And then say Buffalo Trace got a double platinum or something like that? If that's
a good question.
Okay.
I don't think so. No.
Because you had mentioned that they could submit a single barrel, so I was just wondering if that was, if you could use that.
They could do like a club picked single barrel pick of Buffalo Trace, and then
pass it off as Buffalo Trace. Yeah.
Or be like, oh, we're the most awarded distillery because we've submitted like 100 different barrel picks that all got gold medals, right? Or something like that, right? Yeah. So in theory, you could do that, I guess, if you wanted. But
I know we're a little over an hour, and I had a couple more questions. So, but I want to be aware of your time. So, I know you talking about in the future a little bit ago. I just talked myself into a web. I know you mentioned earlier that you were going to talk about the placing and the like medals and different things like that. I don't know if they all do them differently or whatever, but how does it work in IWSC? As far as like the rankings, I just threw out double platinum. I don't even know if that's a thing. If it
is.
Okay. Well, I know you can do platinum. I just didn't know if you could do double platinum or whatever. But so what are the different ratings and like from top to bottom, I guess?
So I don't actually know what they are yet, but I can give you a more general sense of ratings, I guess, just based on my experience. So typically, like you're judging it at 100 points, and if a sample gets above 90, it will be like gold or platinum, depending on like the judging or the competition. And so oftentimes when it gets like double platinum, what that means is that on the judging panel that's evaluating it, every single person gave it that like 90 or above or 95 or above versus it averaging out to being like a gold or platinum level spirit, if
with
that makes
a couple
sense.
of people in the 80s and a couple of people in the 90s, but
Yeah.
averaged out to be a platinum.
Gotcha.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, let's say like 2 or 3 people gave it 85 out of 100, and then 3 people gave it like 95 out of 100, and it averaged to 90. That would be like a gold medal or maybe a platinum level spirit or whiskey. But if everybody gave it like 90 plus, then it would be like a double platinum, if that makes sense.
That does
And
make
so
sense. I did
it's
not know
actually
that.
really, I find, or one thing I didn't realize is like getting the double gold or double platinums is really rare actually. And it's a significant punch above just getting like a gold or platinum in that like there's that consensus amongst all judges that this is like a phenomenal product.
Right, it's like Colgate when 4 out of 5 dentists agree.
Right.
No, it's 5 out of 5.
5 out of 5. The fifth dentist caved, right?
Right.
No,
So typically,
that's
like
good.
if you
I
give it
didn't
like
know that.
95 to 100, that's like a benchmark spirit, something that is like very significant in that, and a great example of what that category is. And then like 90 plus is like a gold medal, like exceptional product. You would want to continue to drink it. Doesn't have any flaws to it. It is distinctive and like punches above the other samples that you've had. 80 to 90 is like a silver medal typically. And so it's something that's like exceptional, but just doesn't have that same like added tiny bit of significant difference in terms of quality or just like being just absolutely exceptional. And
Is there double silver if everybody rates it between 80 and 90?
No. There's only like the double golds or double platinums. And then bronze would be like 70 to 79 typically. And it's something that's like still really well made, minimal flaws, something that's like you would continue to want to purchase, but not necessarily as refined as the like silver or golds. And then depending, like typically below that, so under 70 points would be kind of a no medal territory. And then I guess below like 50 would be like has significant flaws, but you don't typically find that again in judging because oftentimes these samples are evaluated in advance to make sure that there isn't like things that have significant flaws in them. Oh. And so,
okay.
Yeah.
So I was thinking they just wouldn't. So let me ask this question, I guess. How many people submit stuff that doesn't even make it to that point because it's just got too many flaws? I mean, because I wonder how many people think, they're making something and they think it's great and then they send it out. And I know we've been sent stuff that people were like really proud of and then we're like, this is not very good.
Or the consensus that everybody who submits gets a medal.
Well,
so there's some people that think that, like, if you submit something, it's going to get something.
Well, the reason people probably think that is because you just see a lot of people that have medals, which is a definite possibility. I mean, technically everything could medal if it all rated above, 70, right? So, I mean, it could all medal, but I don't think that meddling. I don't think that
Those pesky kids in that dog.
Scooby-Doo. But my point is I think because of that, if you have 1,000 entries, if 300 of them medal, that's going to seem like a lot to the outside observer. But
yeah, that's true.
Anyway, that was my soapbox.
Well, I think the only thing I would say with that is, I guess 2 things. So one is just, again, being sort of a market research focused consultant is in whiskey specifically, consumers, if there is like a medal on the bottle when they're purchasing, there's like a way higher likelihood that they're willing to purchase or try something new if it has like a gold medal. So there is like a purpose to it. Whereas when I've like at least surveyed in Canada, I found that things like vodka and gin perhaps there's not as much like buy-in from people to be like, oh, I'm going to try this because I got like a gold medal for gin. But whiskey, definitely, like subconsciously, people are more willing to purchase and try something new
I could see that
has a medal. But what I was going to say is like the second thing is that there's so many different international spirit competitions and awards these days that I think just really differentiating. So IWSC specifically is like one of the double platinum award ceremonies or awards like given to different whiskeys and other spirits. And so just like understanding that there are specific international spirit competitions that do have a really legitimate process, have really experienced people judging, and that they're like rigorous in terms of the way in which they're evaluating the products versus maybe other awards that are trying to give as many medals as possible. That's not necessarily the intention. And like IWSC has been around for quite a long time. And so they are one of like the top awards, I guess, givers in our industry. And so getting like a double platinum or a double gold from IWSC is like significantly different than like Bob and Joe's awards.
Or the Ascot Awards.
No,
I'm but it definitely is though.
But I'm just saying like IWSC is definitely one of like the cream of the crop awards that like if you are getting a gold or higher, like that actually
means something.
Means something, yeah. Like
how long have they been around? Is it 1969 or 79 or something like that, right?
It's been a long time.
Yeah, it's been.
I don't know the exact date.
I thought I saw it on the website. I didn't do as good of background as you did, but I felt like I saw.
But yeah, so like in particular for these awards, like honestly, again going back to being an imposter, I'm like, how am I judging with all of these other judges in a few weeks? Because there's like phenomenal people on the judging panel this year. I don't know if I'm allowed to get into it, but they will post it at some point. But I'm just like blown away by the names international selection of judges that will be evaluating the products.
Well, listen, I don't know that there's probably a cachet to certain names and things like that. That's I'm sure. But at the end of the day, you want the best palates. And, you know, I don't know what your palate is, but I can tell just from speaking with you that your love of whiskey or just spirits in general, but your love of whiskey and your ability to talk to it in an intelligent fashion is there. So if your palate's anything close to that, then I'm sure you're going to be just fine. So I would not let, I know me telling you this doesn't mean anything, but I would not let, that imposter syndrome get the better of you, because I think we all get it when we have that success that we weren't expecting. So. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm just like, I'm listening and then I'm also trying to Google and be like, oh, have they actually posted it? Because then I can name drop them. People that aren't me.
Well, this will be homework for our listeners. They can go out and look and see what judges are listed. I do know we're 20 minutes over. I expected this to only be an hour, and we've just, like I said, it's organic, and sometimes they're 45 minutes, sometimes they're an hour and a half. I do want to give you back some of your time. I know you're a little bit further on the west side, right?
So it's only 5:50 here.
Oh, wait, what? 5:50? So you're like far east?
From the west. Oh my gosh, do I not know how to... I drank too much whiskey already. No, sorry. I'm in Mountain Standard Time, or is General Mountain Time?
So you're at 6:50 our time, right? No, 5:50. Yeah, you were right. You were right the first time.
Wait, I knew you guys were 7:50.
Yeah.
Right?
We're 7:50. You're 5:50. Yeah. My fault. I just got drunk all of a sudden. I was going the wrong direction when you said that. I was like, wait a second, what? Are you in the Atlantic Ocean? But I went the wrong way.
Canada has really cool city names.
Oh, like what?
Like my buddy Adam, he's on PGA Tour. He's from Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan.
Oh, yes.
Oh, the names, you mean? The names are amazing.
Yeah, the names of their cities and towns are absolutely amazing.
But I was in Vancouver in 2012, went up to Whistler, Blackcomb, and
cool.
My company had a kickoff meeting in Vancouver, and it was at the same time that I was watching. I don't know if you ever watched the show The Killing. And it was actually filmed in Vancouver. It was supposed to be in Seattle, but I guess a lot of times they'll film in Vancouver for Seattle. just because it's very similar, like geographically with like the bays and the ocean and stuff like that. But
there's like tax incentives too.
well, yeah, that too, I'm sure. Yeah, that's the big reason. But they'll use Vancouver for Seattle for that reason. But yeah, a lot of things are filmed in Canada that we don't know about. But for New York City is in Toronto all the time. Like they'll do New York City and Toronto.
Last Saturday morning, I drank with a whole group of Canadians that were at the concert venue that we were at. No, in the parking garage.
At Sonic
we
Temple?
backed up right into their little, circle, and I was blown away that they had garage beer and other American beers. I said, "Where's the Labatt's and the Molson and the good stuff?" And
Garage beer is pretty good.
Garage is pretty good,
But it's no Molson's or Labatt's.
Right. I do like Labatt Blue, and it is better on the Canadian side compared to the American side.
Oh, it always is.
Yes.
Yeah, the same thing with when I bartended in England. It was 100% different drinking the beer over there. Like even Budweiser over there was different.
Guinness.
Yeah, all of it. Like, but yeah,
in
like,
Europe it's Guinness in North America.
yeah, 100% agree. 100% agree.
But they were from the area where all the Letterkenny people were from.
oh no,
Oh,
They were like, we know the Letterkenny people.
that's funny. All right, let's land the plane because we're at an hour and 25
Pump the
minutes.
brakes right there.
wait, tell us the tasting notes of your whiskey you're drinking.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, this
So,
is really complex.
Did you see us giving each other like finger signals? Like we were, holy cow.
Can you see how dark that is?
Yeah, that's crazy.
This is Southern Collective Spirits Company.
So this is a pick from our buddy Jason at Mash and Drum. He has a club with My Bourbon Journey and Mash and Drum. It's called Mash and Journey, and they do barrel picks all the time. And this is from the Southern Collective. They named it the Modern Dusty because it just tastes. I mean, this thing is ridiculous. What's the proof on
How
this?
do you get that color though? Is it natural? Is it,
It's natural, but it's oh my gosh, it is so dark. I can't remember the details behind this.
It's
129.7.
129.7.
Oh, okay.
And it's definitely very coffee bitterish.
I've had it for about a year, and I don't remember the details behind it. But this is yeah. There's a lot of coffee type notes.
Man, it's good.
This is so good. Like when I tasted this, I was like, holy cow! I haven't tasted this since I originally opened it.
It's robust. It's like tiramisu. It's
Yeah, there's a lot of flavors going on here, and it doesn't taste like 130 proof.
No, it
that's
doesn't.
For sure. Not even close. But anyway, yeah, this has definitely been the highlight of our night as far as drinking.
Does it have an age statement or no?
Oh, I don't know.
I didn't look.
I didn't look either.
Or are they just like
Aged at
Like,
least. Get this. What would you guess? Age wise.
9 years, 10 years.
I mean, from the color, what would you think?
How old?
Yeah.
I mean, it's old. Like,
Aged at least 15 years.
oh,
oh wow, okay.
I mean, this you can't see through this.
I know.
Like that other stuff I can see through, you cannot see through this. This is crazy. And it's good. This is good. This is probably the most complex and best tasting thing we've had tonight.
yep.
So, wow. So hats off, Jason, if you're listening. I know you listen every once in a while, but
Will he make it this far?
well, he probably already turned it off by now. But so anyway, I was landing the plane when I got hijacked.
I mean, he loves the giggly bits comments, so
Here it is. He's hijacking again. So we do need to land this. But thank you so much for coming on. This was a very, for me, enlightening conversation. There was a lot of information. I feel like that we've had questions on some of our previous episodes about how they get the awards and just different things, and hearing your journey on how you got to where you are as far as, judging and different things like that. I think that was interesting as well. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on. I know we took a lot longer than we had planned,
all right.
but it was,
It
for,
just
for
means-
us, it was worth it.
yeah, it means you were engaging.
Yeah, for sure.
If the conversation's going, it's going. Right?
Exactly. That's the way I see it. But thank you for coming on. You are welcome to join us anytime on another episode if you ever want to.
Yeah,
It's been a fun conversation. We can just talk about anything. It doesn't have to be about IWSC. It can just be hanging out and drinking some whiskey if you want. So,
Learning more about all of our journeys and stuff.
So,
sounds good.
but cheers and thank you for joining. And we really appreciate you being on.
Yeah.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Cheers.
All right. Well, that wraps up this episode. Thank you for joining in on yet another hunt for great bourbon. Please give us a 5-star review anywhere you are listening. But if you don't, leave us some constructive criticism in the review. so that we can better improve our show. But until then, sit back, grab a pour, kick up your feet, and enjoy some bourbon.
Tune in each week. Sit back. Tune in each week. Grab a pour. Tune in each week. Kick up your feet and enjoy. Kick up your feet and enjoy.
The Bourbon Hunters podcast has been craft distilled, produced, recorded, and edited by Dude Pool. For any feedback, questions, or episode ideas, please reach out to info@bourbonhunters.com.